What's going on, everybody? Big news. Miami is going to name Kevin Steele as its next defensive coordinator. David, instant reaction to this, and we will get into some things as well. But just initially, what do you think of this hire?
Yeah, I think it's a solid hire. Clearly a veteran guy that's coordinated defenses. Mario Cristobal's familiar with him, right? Dating back to their time together on staff at Alabama. I think, the first question anyone's going to have for a defense is it a 4-down front, 3-down front? Sounds like he can do multiple, but for the most part, he's a 4-down guy, aggressive up front, plays man coverage in the back, and does a nice job of tying that all together, right? So first impression, I think it's a good hire. So yeah, I mean, I have no issues with it. And yeah, I think he will run a style of defense that I think Miami fans are going to like.
Yeah, attacking and stuff. We'll get into some style stuff. I do want to mention a little bit about his background. Again, he's been a defensive coordinator at a lot of top programs, and I want to make sure I mention that. So he's been a DC at Auburn, Alabama, LSU, and Clemson. He's also coached at Nebraska, FSU, Oklahoma State at the Power Five conference level, Tennessee as well, his alma mater. And he coached the Carolina Panthers, the linebackers coach there, head coach at Baylor. Just doing a quick rundown of his resume. It's really impressive where he's been. For me, when I heard him, what's interesting for me is I remember under Randy Shannon as head coach of the Hurricanes, there was a lot of serious discussion about getting Kevin Steele at Miami, but at that time they did not have the budget to afford him. I knew what the budget was at the time. I knew what they were hoping that they could pay him, and that just did not happen. They just could not afford a guy like this. It's crazy how things come full circle when we talk about the budget, because we've been hearing about
Yeah.
Mario Cristobal having an elevated budget. And somebody on Inside the U message boards asked, what did he make at Auburn? And just a quick glance, in 2020,
Yeah.
he made $2.5 million, which tied as the highest paid assistant
Right.
coach in the country. You want to talk about Miami getting in the big ball game here. We talked about it a lot with Mario Cristobal, but now as the assistant coach, as a defensive coordinator, this is a guy that's not even the OC, which generally generates even more salaries. So those were some instant reaction things that I had, that it's full
Right.
circle, and that it's we're talking big bucks here.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to make 2.5 at Miami, but yes, the fact that he is that level of DC, I think speaks to his abilities and the respect he has in the coaching community as well. Yeah, I mean, like you said, that year, 2.5 million, highest in the country that year, right? That's like Brent Venables type of salary for an assistant. So, I want to ask you this, Chris. I think maybe the instant reaction that might raise questions, and I don't know. I'm not saying I necessarily feel this way, but his age, right? Do you think there's a problem going with a guy who's 63 years old rather than maybe a quote unquote up and comer?
Yeah, I believe in veteran leadership, to be honest with you. A guy that's done it. And look, he's been around a lot of top programs, won a lot of games. He understands what it takes. I do have a rundown that I'll get to in some top players that he's coached. And shout out to Tags 305. He's the one that had the question there. And other questions coming through on the boards. People are curious if if this has been in the works. So I want to get into that as well. But I like the veteran leadership for one side of the ball. I think it's a good thing. This is a guy that knows, although his strength is going to be the linebacker spot, he knows all three levels. He knows what
Right.
it takes at all three levels. And I like I like when there's veteran leadership, and I don't think it's a negative thing. I'm looking forward to hearing his vision for Miami and on the defensive side of the ball and what they want to do. But I think Mario Cristobal has made it crystal clear, although it took some time to get to this point, that Miami wants to win big. And I think a guy like
Yeah.
this definitely helps. And certainly it was interesting that it came to this point. So David, what were you hearing? I'll kind of piggyback off you about some things I've been hearing about Kevin Steele and Mario, and essentially how long they've been talking. Has this been in the works, do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know like specific timelines, but I will say, when Mario Cristobal was hired, right? I talked to various sources just for names, right? Who are names to know as Mario Cristobal looks to build out his staff? And this was back first week of December or whenever Mario was hired at Miami exactly. And you can go back and look at the article, right? Kevin Steele was listed um, under one of my names to know at defensive coordinator. Now, was I necessarily aware that they were speaking? I'll have to admit I was not. I will admit that I got a text around 4 o'clock today, Tuesday. Hey, check in on Kevin Steele. There might be something going on there for DC. When I checked, I didn't get any feedback on that. And 2 hours later, it's kind of announced. But I do know at Oregon, when Mario was there, he looked at hiring Kevin Steele at Oregon. And for whatever reason, I don't know exactly why it didn't work out, but he went with Andy Avalos instead. So there's been a long time respect there, I think, between Mario and Kevin.
Yeah, they overlapped when, so Kevin Steele was the director of football ops in 2013 and the linebackers coach in 2014 when Mario Cristobal was there. So that's how they overlap. That's how they've been on the staff together. And yes, I again with the timetable, but I know that they've been speaking. I know that they've spoken before, and I'll just kind of leave it at that without revealing too much of what's going on there. Let's go to style, Dave. Let's make this a style thing. People want to know. You touched on it. What do you expect from this defense, from what you've known? And we will certainly go more in detailed. Definitely leading into spring ball, we'll have more content on the website there on InsideTheU.com. But from his style, what you've known about him, what kind of style do you expect that he'll bring to UM?
Yeah, I mean, I do think he's going to have a defensive line that gets upfield in a hurry, right? I think he's creative with his blitzing from the linebacker level. At the same time, I'm under the impression that he does adapt his defense year to year to year to his personnel strengths. So what will that look like at Miami here in year one? I think that's a little to be determined because, the transfer portal can change a defense like that. And I don't know if Miami's necessarily done adding pieces on defense via the transfer portal between now and fall camp. But just looking at it on paper, I would imagine he will try and highlight Miami's defensive line. You got intriguing talents there with Leonard Taylor. I think too, you got to find a way to get the three safeties on the field together from last year, right? James Williams, Cam Kitchens, Avante Williams. I think he's going to build out a defense that highlights these players while playing an aggressive and sound style of football.
It was interesting and kind of looking up again. Anything that you look up on him, you're going to see the terms 4-3 attacking defense. It's something that a lot of Miami fans are excited about. We've seen that kind of style work. I think what was interesting too, and kind of doing just a little bit of research already, there was a game when he was at Auburn, played against LSU, that Joe Burrow team from 2019. He brought out a new defense that they had not shown against or on film to anybody. It was a 3-1-7, basically running quarters there, the defense there in the back. And, it was very interesting how they were doing that. And, it held LSU. LSU went ahead and won 23-20, but it was just interesting that he was able to mix it up, present this defense that he hadn't shown before. And I think that kind of stuff is great to hear, great to see a guy, again, that's been around college football. That's what you want. You want an experienced coach that knows how to game plan against tough teams. Certainly LSU was one of the best we've seen in college football that year.
Yeah, I think one of Manny Diaz's issues, right? He was certainly aggressive, and he ran the 4-3 defense, which, Miami fans, we all want to see. I don't know if he necessarily adapted to his personnel year to year to year like we would have wanted, right? It was kind of the same blitzes, the same scheme, the same system that we would see. And I think that became an issue once the linebackers, the good linebackers, Shaq Quarterman, Mike Pinckney left, and they were running the same stuff, even though the personnel wasn't up to that same level, right? So, good coaches adapt to what ingredients they have to work with. Kevin Steele has a reputation of doing that, and so we'll see what he can do. I will say this as a recruiter, real quick. I don't know like necessarily names that he's landed in his career, but I do know, just checking in with people familiar with him, sounds like he does a good job recruiting the Carolinas, which South Carolina, North Carolina lately have been known for producing pretty good D linemen. And then he's also respected as a recruiter, I guess, in South Georgia. So those would be two areas. I do, way back when now, his time at Florida State, he did recruit Dade County. But I think my vision would be he would recruit primarily in the Carolinas and South Georgia for Miami.
Yeah, it's a guy from Dillon, South Carolina, played at Furman there before he transferred to Tennessee. So he definitely has the ties there. So not surprising to hear that. And it'll be very interesting to see how things kind of break down with recruiting. David, I just want to do a list, a little bit of the top players that he's coached. If there's any one of these names that stand out to you, definitely jump in at the end. But I'm just going to do a list if you guys can hang on here. These are first and second round guys that he coached either as a defensive coordinator or a position coach. These are names you guys are probably familiar with, but it's pretty impressive. Again, I touched on at the beginning, all levels of players, not just linebackers or one area, but starting with the linebackers, Rolando McClain out of Alabama, first round pick, Reggie Ragland, second round pick. Both of those guys out of Alabama. Staying with the Alabama ties, Kareem Jackson, a first rounder safety, Terrence Cody, you guys remember him, definitely a second round pick, defensive tackle. At Clemson, Vic Beasley, another first round linebacker. And then while at LSU, Jamal Adams, first round pick, safety, Tre'Davious White, cornerback. So again, now you're starting to see some secondary guys, first round pick. And then more on Auburn, a couple guys that you would know, Carlton Davis, local product, became a second round pick. Noah Igbenani for the Dolphins. I know I messed up his name, but first round pick. And then Derek Brown, top 10 pick, defensive tackle. These are just the names that stood out to me on, again, all three levels. But is there someone or something that kind of intrigues you?
Well, I do know he has an eye for talent, right? Or a respected eye for talent. You don't get to be the director of player personnel for Nick Saban otherwise, right? So he is respected as an evaluator. Specifically, I have been told that he's really good. He's got a very good eye for linebackers, right? So I might be jumping to a conclusion here, but I could see Kevin Steele being the DC/linebackers coach. Do you think that's unfair?
I'd be surprised, David. He's done this in the past. The last time he did that, it was in 2015 at LSU. While he was at Auburn, he was just the defensive coordinator. And so he can certainly do this.
He can walk around then.
Looking at my notes, he did it at Clemson 2009 to 2011 as well. I guess, yeah, he could certainly do that and would be good at it. I almost look at it like, kind of going back to what I said, as a veteran coach, a guy that maybe could just oversee the defense and let somebody else do linebackers. But certainly, let's go right into that with unless there's other players you want to mention at all that stood out to you.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will notice that I have heard too, that's just interesting. This is like a fan tidbit, right? So his time at Clemson, right? He was a DC under Dabo. That, I don't know, for lack of a better word, divorce, didn't end well. I think it ended after West Virginia hung a ton of points on them in a bowl game. There was just bad blood there. And so what I've been told is, Kevin Steele relishes the opportunity to compete against Clemson and Dabo Swinney here in the ACC. So we know that Clemson is on the schedule here this year. Maybe Miami plays them twice, the ACC championship game too. And I do think that Kevin Steele wants to get some sort of, revenge, for lack of a better term, on Dabo Swinney.
You're absolutely correct. 2011, the 2012, it actually was the Orange Bowl, 70-33, lost to West Virginia. And I'm sure again the competitive spirit for Mario Cristobal
Right.
and likewise I'm sure moving forward. So let's keep going, move this thing forward. Miami still needs more coaches, more assistant coaches on defense. They have got the defensive line coach. We touched on linebackers, whether or not he will coach that. He certainly could,
Right.
or if they bring somebody in. And then secondary, whether if they're going to have a safeties guy, a corner, split it up. The way it works is certainly you don't have to have, you could do it either way. The way the rules work now, you get 10 assistant
Right.
coaches. So that's why sometimes you see teams split that, sometimes you don't. Same way with linebackers, we've seen that at Miami. So still secondary coaches, obviously on the offensive side, with the offensive coordinator, stay tuned on all the news there. Quarterbacks coach, tight ends, wide receivers coach now is wide open. This is going to be interesting. I know people are curious, will this affect signing day? We'll wrap up with that. Signing day coming up immediately, but do you see, does this announcement affect it? And I know, and I don't want to dodge around it, particularly with Shamar Stewart, with that as the biggest guy, but also, just recruits kind of moving forward with this. And essentially it would be the fact that this was done before, and maybe other people knew this, but maybe it just got out the day before sign day.
Yeah, I don't think it's by accident, right, that this leaks out the day before signing day. We know Shamar Stewart wants to know who is your defensive coordinator. Specifically, is it going to be a four-man down front or a three-man? And so this answers that question, right? Kevin Steele runs a four-man. Kind of the early sense I'm getting is that Shamar and his people aren't familiar with Kevin Steele. So it's not like it's a game changer at this point, but as we are recording this, Mario and Kevin Steele now have 15 hours to recruit and make a presentation on how Shamar Stewart can fit in this Kevin Steele defense, right? So I'm never going to count out Mario Cristobal, but I do think it's still kind of an uphill battle. I do kind of think, as we are recording here Tuesday night, Texas A&M's probably still the team to beat, but certainly it's another step forward in the recruitment of Shamar Stewart. Hey, now you know what our defense is going to be, so that's no longer a question.
So we will have plenty more information on the website. David, definitely appreciate you jumping on here. I do want to make mention, I do believe that this defense, we touched on linebackers, but look, Miami's their current team, their 2022 roster, these guys are going to have to be ready in spring ball if they want to be pros, if they want to be great players at the college level. A guy like Kevin Steele has seen it, he's done it. These guys are going to have to essentially walk into this thing in spring ball and kind of have this professional approach moving forward. I think that's my biggest takeaway with this hire. Miami's trying to make big hires without question. So plenty more. We'll wrap this up. Definitely appreciate you. Thanks everybody for watching, and take care.
Thank you.